Sister's BF tried to kill her and used my child as a hostage. Just to start off, everyone is okay. He was caught and arrested and is currently in jail with a bond his family can't afford. I don't know where to start, but I guess I'll begin by saying I'm traumatized. As a parent, the second worst thing that could happen has happened. I didn't know where he was for 6 minutes, but it felt like it was 30. I feel like I was the last person contacted to know what was going on. I'm angry. I'm angry at my sister's boyfriend, I'm angry at my sister, and I'm angry at myself. I know I shouldn't be, but I am. To make a long story short, my sister was supposed to watch my son a couple of nights ago. She said she wouldn't be off work in time, but that he could watch him for 30 minutes to an hour before she got off. I thought it would be okay since it wasn't a long period of time. I was so wrong. I got a bad gut feeling when I pulled in to drop him off, but I ignored it. I chalked it up to anxiety and thought I was just being selfish and wanted a fun night out. I received a call about 45 minutes after dropping him off. Just came to, beat her up, crashed her car, and took off in the crashed car. I'm sorry, OP. I called back, and she told me that they found him, but that I couldn't see him yet. Instantly, I thought he was dead. That was the worst 6 minutes of my life. Basically, my sister tried to break up with him that morning, but in his eyes, she wasn't allowed to break up with him, and that's what started all of this. He was using their dog as a hostage at first, so my sister got our other sister to get her dog out of that situation. She said she was going to tell me not to drop off my child, but he was acting fine and had calmed down, so she didn't. But I really wish she had. I'm mad she didn't. I would have never dropped him off. He pulled up to her workplace and told her if she didn't come out, he would harm my child. He sped off into an alleyway by her work and strangled her. He said, "Do you really want to break up with me? I just want you to know if you break up with me, my child and I are going to go on a ride." She said no, and he called her a liar before crashing into her job sign, totaling her car. Then he told her if she tried to run or scream for help, he'd kill my child. He hit her again. There was more arguing before he tried to kidnap her. She jumped out of the car and ran screaming into her job. The police found my child alone in their apartment with the door locked. He had dropped him off and taken off on foot. He turned himself in after hiding for about an hour, crying and admitting everything. My child is fine and didn't know what was going on, thinking they were playing, but I am not okay. My sister isn't okay. She's been left with a large financial burden as they live together and is now without a car. She is traumatized. I feel so bad for feeling angry with her. I know I wouldn't know what to do in that situation as I've never been in it, and she was in fight or flight mode. But I am angry. Irrational or not, I'm angry she didn't let me know they were having problems. I'm angry she jumped out of the car screaming after he said he'd kill my child. I'm angry I wasn't told immediately, but I also feel bad. I've always been my sister's protector, and I wasn't even worried about her when this was going on. I was only worried about my child. I feel more angry that my child was involved than about what happened to her, and that feels terrible. I don't know why I feel this way, and I don't know what to do with these emotions. I don't know what to do from here. I want to make a post exposing him, maybe set up a GoFundMe for her, but I know she doesn't want that. I want to press personal charges or sue him, but I don't think she wants that either. I just don't know what to do or how to process my feelings. My family doesn't even want to talk about it. There's so much more I could say, but at the end of the day, I am so thankful that my child is okay. I prayed so hard. I'm thankful my sister is physically okay with only mild bruising, and I'm thankful he's in jail just hoping for a strong sentence. However, I do not wish to condemn my sister or press charges on her. That wasn't the point of this post. She was just as surprised by this as I was and was not covering for her abusive boyfriend. She had a bad lapse in judgment. She immediately ran into her job screaming to call the police and helped get him in jail. I definitely will be more cautious moving forward, but please refrain from harsh comments about my sister. She didn't intend for this to happen. You have helped me feel justified in my anger, and I really appreciate that. Maybe it's because she's my sister and she doesn't have a bad bone in her body, but you are right. Her dog is her baby. She definitely cares more about him than her nephew, and if it was him in the car, I don't think she would have jumped out. But I'll just have to sit with this for a while. User Wolfie is sad. He said, "Press charges against that abusive excuse for a human. He literally endangered your child. He could have killed your child. Forget what your sister wants. This is out of her hands. If she isn't outraged that he tried to kill her nephew to get back at her for breaking up with him, then unleash your inner mama bear and do not relent until he is in jail for endangering your child. To this, OP said, he's in jail. The police were called immediately and he turned himself in and confessed to everything. I am just wondering if I can personally sue or press charges if there are already criminal charges against him. User Murphy23 said, I know your sister is his victim, but she put your child in danger. I would never forgive my sister if she did what your sister did. She would be out of my life for good. She should have called you during the day. She cared more about her relationship than about an innocent child. Update. This happened back in May. He ended up only getting 6 years probation. Right before my sister was to testify, they came and told her he took a plea deal. She was off the case and couldn't get any updates after that as it was no longer her case. His mom ended up sending me a very hateful, abuse-enabling, victim-blaming message on October 8th. He died on November 22nd. Either an overdose or suicide or both. I'm not completely sure. Not much of an update. I don't really know how to feel. I'm glad he can't hurt anybody else, but sad he didn't get a just sentence and took the easy way out. I don't know. It's been a weird month. Edit. I realized I left some things out. He ended up posting bail after. I guess his family did indeed have money. About 2 weeks after all of this happened, my sister left work and found him asleep in her car. She got a co-worker to take her home, and the next morning he showed up at her home and she called the police. He was arrested without bail this time. He ended up getting a good lawyer, and the rest is history. My sister and I have not been on speaking terms since June, besides occasionally exchanging a few words on Sundays when we meet with the family. After his death, we have since unblocked each other and have been in low contact. Hopefully, we can move forward and work on our relationship. User Jen SB said, the world is just better off without some people in it. It sounds like this is one of those cases. Take comfort in knowing your family is safe and you have absolutely nothing to feel guilty about. He's gone for good rather than just a couple of years. To this, OP said, that is true. Thank you. I fully believe he deserves to rot. My aunt thought it was wrong of me to say, good riddance, may he rot, and I'm a huge empath, but I have no empathy for that man. I honestly do hope he suffered as much as, or more than, he put my family through in his final moments. This has validated my feelings, so thank you. User Challenge Houdini said, I don't know how you can speak to your sister again after all this. She endangered your child's life. She was scared for her own safety and the safety of her dog, but she was fine with that monster looking after your child. I hope this has been a great lesson to never leave your child alone with anyone you don't know well or trust. I trust no one with my children, and unless there's an emergency, I don't even ask immediate family for help. This next post was made in the AITAH subreddit by a user named Chimpkin. The post is titled AITAH for breaking off my engagement with my fiance because of his creepy comments toward my 14-year-old sister. I am in a tough situation and I'm not sure if I'm overreacting, so I need some outside perspectives. I've been with my fiance Charles for about 2 years and everything seemed fine until recently. A few weeks ago, my 14-year-old sister Amy came to stay with us for just a few days while our parents were out of town. During her stay, I started noticing some really unsettling things. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but Charles started making comments that made me feel incredibly uncomfortable. He would call her so hot and would say things like, you're going to turn heads when you're older, and you've got such a body on you already. The worst part was when he said, I'd be jealous if I were your boyfriend. Every guy will be looking at you soon. I tried to ignore it at first, but it kept happening and I began to feel sick to my stomach. Then one evening, I overheard him telling a friend on the phone, Amy's got that look now, it's like she's starting to bloom. It was honestly one of the creepiest things I've ever heard. I felt like I was losing my mind and I just knew I couldn't stay in that relationship anymore. I confronted him about his behavior and he immediately got defensive. He denied it and said I was being paranoid and that I should trust him. He insisted that he was just being nice and that I was overreacting. I didn't care. I packed my things, broke off the engagement, and moved back in with my parents. Now, my friends and some family members are telling me I overreacted. They say I should have talked it out with him first, but I don't see how that would have changed anything. So AITA for breaking up with my fiance because of his creepy comments toward my little sister. Obviously, this dude is really weird and OP is NTA. I don't actually care too much since it's none of my business, but the age gap between OP and her fiance is a bit alarming to me at least. I'm sure a 15-year age gap isn't the biggest issue for some couples, but I'd assume those are far and few between. Just as we'll see in the comments, I got the impression that this guy was primarily with OP because he had some sort of fetish for women who are significantly younger than himself. He may have seen OP as an opportunity to get to her sister. User Aggravating Ring said, drop the man and the friends defending him. That is red flag on fire behavior. To this user, Agile Top said, he was grooming your sisters. He's got huge pedophile vibes. I would not want him around your sister or any future friends' kids or your own. That age gap is too much. Your sister is not much younger than you are. To us older people, him being with you is just as inappropriate as you picturing him with your sister. Get out. Good job. I'd also look him up to see if he's on an offender list. User Ranty said NTA. He liked you because of how young you were, and the same applies to your sister. You made the right choice. Edit. If you've come here to tell me it's a fake story, please keep scrolling because the notifications are starting to pile up. This story might be fake, but plenty of people have replied to me with similar experiences, so hopefully there's a lesson to be learned. User OK Analyst said, please keep an eye on her and make sure your ex isn't reaching out to her. Considering her age is the same as your age gap and she's close to the age you were when you met him, I would be worried he's a predator and might start grooming her. Fingers crossed he's not, but it's better to keep her safe. This last post was made in the relationship advice subreddit by a throwaway account. The post is titled, GF has a secret conversation every morning and it's making me crazy. My girlfriend and I have been dating for a few months. My work switched to full home working recently, so I started staying over more, and things have been great, apart from one issue. When I used to stay over and get up early for work, my girlfriend would stay in bed until after I left. As soon as I started working from home, she became an instant early riser, always getting up maybe 20 minutes before me. When she asked me about it, she says she just likes a quiet coffee in the mornings. I got up early a couple of times, made fresh coffee, and handed her a cup so we could enjoy it together. But wherever I sit, she would go and sit elsewhere. This has been really getting to me, so I pressed the point and said it would be nice to sit together in the mornings. It didn't go well, and when I tried to sit with her the next day, she went to her office and locked the door behind her. She did this several days in a row last week, and when I try to bring it up, she says she doesn't want to talk about it. Yesterday was my day off, so I stayed in bed, waited until she got up for her quiet coffee, and I crept up to the office. As I suspected, she was talking to someone. She was speaking very softly, so I couldn't make it out, but it sounded like an intimate conversation. I've barely spoken to her since and don't know what to say. How do you address this when she refuses to even speak about it? What is she getting from another relationship when I am with her 24/7 for the last 2 weeks? I do have a small camera I could put in her office. I know it's wrong, but this is driving me crazy, and if I need to confront her, it will be easier with all the evidence. Update. I noticed recently that my girlfriend was avoiding me in the mornings only for a short period of time, but every single day, insisting she just wants a quiet coffee on her own. I happened to hear her talking to someone during one of these morning sessions and obviously wanted to know who she's talking to every single morning. Today, when she got up and went to make coffee, I took her mug and wouldn't let her have it. I was only joking at first, but it turned worse with her saying, "Just give me my mug." I lost my temper and said, "Just tell me who you're cheating on me with." This is where I think I'm the asshole. Maybe because it was something she's been doing every day since her dad died almost a year ago. She talks to him every morning while she drinks her coffee, just chatting about her day or whatever. Obviously, I backed off right away and sat down. I told her it's fine and she should keep doing it. I want her to, and I just needed to know. I just thought she was talking to some other guy. She shook her head and said it was just a silly thing and she couldn't keep doing it, now she had to talk about it. I don't know why me knowing what she's doing makes a difference and would have avoided this whole thing. She seemed sad but was smiling, so I went in the bedroom. But just a minute later, I heard her crying really hard. I went back and she was saying, "He's gone now, he's really gone." So I said, "Are you talking about your dad?" And she just got up and ran out the door. She has not answered my text, and then about an hour ago, her brother came to the door and called me a fucking asshole and worse. I honestly thought he was going to hit me. He took some of her stuff and said she won't be home tonight. I never meant to upset her, and it is not unreasonable to want to know who your partner is talking to every morning. I am sorry she got upset, but am I really in the wrong here? Update 2. My girlfriend and I had an argument last week over coffee of all things. It got out of hand and she went to stay somewhere else to cool off. Now she is only speaking to me through her brother who hates me anyway, so I don't have any chance to set things right. He is saying I need to move out in 3 days so she can come home, but I have nowhere to go and can't get a place of my own that fast. I know that if I could talk to her, we could get past this, but everything is going through him, and I am sure he is twisting her words and mine to keep us apart. She has blocked me on everything and her phone is here, so I can't call or text her. What can I do to get past her brother who is trying to keep us apart? I need to set things straight or I'm going to be homeless. Edit, she has taken some leave from her job, but her work phone and laptop are here, so I could possibly use her job to convince her to speak with me. I think it's totally fine for OP to be concerned, but I'm not entirely sure if setting up a camera in this situation is the best idea. That being said, there are a lot of comments that heavily side against OP, and I'm not sure if I'm in the minority, but I feel like some of the hate toward him is unjustified. However, I do agree that some of his decisions are a bit over the top. For example, swiping his girlfriend's coffee. If you boil it down, I feel that these two people are just not right for each other. User Begonia said, "This hit a nerve for me. I too like to have quiet coffee in the morning. With 4 kids and a husband who wakes up like a Disney princess every morning, I just wanted some peace and quiet before I began my day. My husband did not understand this. He would get miffed when I didn't want to chat with him in the morning. Can't we just have the local news on and not talk, please? So I stopped waking up with him. He's in construction and wakes up at 5 every morning, so I started sleeping in until he left for work at 6:30. After 30 plus years of marriage, he's finally gotten the message and knows that if he wants me to wake up with him, he needs to not be so chatty and give me time to wake up. I'm glad the girlfriend broke up with OP. He just keeps reinforcing the fact that he has no respect for her needs or wants and is jealous, possessive, and incredibly immature." User Navi the Fairy said, "I figured it was some type of morning ritual, prayer, or meditation. She should probably see a counselor, but this is a perfectly normal grief ritual, and some things are okay to keep private and sacred. This dude couldn't even give her an inch of her own space while mooching off her housing situation. It feels like she was done with him for a while. I don't think she had to tell him what she was doing for 20 minutes in her own private home. I don't think your partner needs to know 100% of your inner world. He's so unstable that he immediately jumped to conclusions and accused her of something awful. Who needs that nuisance in their life?" User the Littlest Mouse said, reading between the lines, "It seems this dude got himself evicted from his last apartment, and they changed the locks and confiscated his stuff to pay back rent. The amount of entitlement from this asshole is amazing. He essentially forced the issue of moving in by playing on his girlfriend's guilt. Didn't support her after the loss of her father, didn't listen when she asked for a small amount of space, and is now shocked that she didn't keep rolling over for him. His latest post is infuriating. It's all about himself and his predicament, with nothing about trying to understand and make amends with his girlfriend. He epitomizes the idea that poor planning is not someone else's emergency. He couldn't be bothered to care about her and is now shocked that she doesn't want to keep bankrolling his life. AITAH for telling my friend that he deserved to have his GF cheat on him, then get beat by her affair partner. My friend Mark has recently been experiencing a lot of relationship troubles with his girlfriend Leah. They got together back in February of this year and their relationship has become a complete train wreck. Mark was head over heels for Leah. He has told me and our other friends that she is definitely the one, and that he eventually plans on marrying her and settling down. This all seemed both premature and immature to me, but it's beside the point. Leah, on the other hand, is a nightmare. She has cheated on Mark several times now, and every time she does, she gives him some lame excuse about him not being supportive enough, or that she made a mistake, or that she wanted to see him get jealous for her sake. He believes her every time. According to Mark, Leah largely acts this way because her father was very abusive towards her and her mother, which has left her with a lot of trauma. Mark constantly reiterates that he wants to help her work through it, but things haven't really been going his way. Since September, Leah has been seeing another guy, Derek, and she is 100% infatuated with him. I only know this based on what my other friends have been telling me because I was in another state for college. Mark has been arguing a lot with Leah about Derek, and she has threatened to leave him if he doesn't simply accept her for who she is. He did. Not only that, he and Leah have entered what he calls a semi-open relationship. This means, according to Mark, that Leah is allowed to see Derek as much as she wants, but Mark isn't allowed to see anyone else. This is because Leah fears that Mark would become emotionally invested in someone else and leave her. Mark begrudgingly agreed to this arrangement and has been seething about it for months. Since about November, Leah has been spending more time with Derek than with Mark. While Mark doesn't admit it, our other friends have told me that she is essentially in a full-time relationship with Derek and only comes to Mark for money and emotional support. Fast forward to this week, I'm back home for the break. Mark started texting me on Saturday saying that he hated Derek for trying to steal his girl and wanted to confront him that night. He asked me to come along since all of our other friends couldn't. Since I had just returned home the day before, I was still exhausted, so I flatly refused Mark's request. I told him that Leah was a lost cause and that I wasn't going to fight people I'd never met for her. Mark started begging me, saying that Leah is the love of his life and that he needs my help. I refused again. He then said he would go on his own, but I advised him against it. I woke up Sunday morning to more than 300 messages on my phone from Mark and all our friends. Long story short, Mark went over to Derek's place to bring Leah back. He ended up getting beaten up by Derek and his friends. They only stopped when Leah asked them to. I called Mark and suggested he talk to a lawyer or something, but he refused since Leah asked him not to escalate the situation. I then told him he was being foolish, which triggered him significantly. He started calling me names like and Snake for not backing him up and accused me of being a fake friend. At this point, I was so irritated that I told Mark he deserved to get jumped and that it made sense why Leah preferred Derek over him. He hung up on me, and we haven't spoken since. Since then, my other friends have been saying that I'm an asshole for how I handled the conversation, but they do agree that Mark is being foolish. Update. Some of my friends and I ended up going out with Mark to see how he was doing. We didn't want to go to his parents' place since Leah was now living there with him and we didn't want to see her. He looked very beaten up, but surprisingly, he was in a good mood and even insisted that I didn't have to apologize for how I spoke last time. He told us that Derek ended up dumping Leah a few days after the fight. Apparently, he asked Leah to break up with Mark. She refused and they argued. Their conversation ended with Leah being kicked out of his apartment in the middle of the night, and Mark had to come pick her up. He has refused his parents' request to escalate the situation at Leah's request. Mark said that Leah has been very depressed about Derek dumping her and spends a lot of her days crying. Mark claims he's incredibly thankful to be there to comfort her and provide emotional support. He keeps saying that when it comes down to it, Leah chose him over Derek, and nothing can take that away. As I mentioned earlier, Leah has decided to return to living with Mark. She can technically go to her mother's house, but doesn't want to. Here's the real kicker. Mark says he has a very good reason to believe Leah might be in the early stages of pregnancy now. My friends and I assumed the child was Derek's, but Mark insisted that regardless, it would be his child. We asked him to get a paternity test, but he has refused since he can't do that to Leah. We've told him that the relationship is toxic, but he didn't want to hear it since that was a matter of perspective. Also, his parents have no clue about the potential pregnancy. He says that in the future, he doesn't want us to say anything about Leah unless it is the absolute truth. My other friends and I all left pretty stunned, and I'm thinking that at this stage, I'll slowly be removing myself from Mark's life. It sucks since I've known him for a long time and do enjoy his company. However, I don't think I'll be able to remain friends with him in good faith if I'm not able to speak honestly with him. I don't think the OP is wrong here. His friend has been given several opportunities to end this relationship, but he just keeps going back. They say they're in a semi-open relationship, but I think that term is just nonsense. It's either open or it isn't. OP's friend is just a lost cause, and to put it bluntly, he deserves everything that's coming to him from here on out. User Fjordgard said, "Poor kid. My bet is that Mark will raise a child he isn't even the father of, basically on his own. Chances are that Leah will prefer spending her time at another guy's place rather than with her child. It's actually kind of surprising that she wants to have the child in the first place." User Mooney said, "At this point all they can do is watch Mark ruin his life." A deleted user said, "Well, you can't save everyone." To this global reference said, "Some people just want to live in their delusion. Mark has created an illusion of Leah and he doesn't want to shatter it, because if he does, he will be exposed to the cold, hard truth. Maybe when he is 25 and his brain finally develops, he will see it. but by then it will be too late. This next post was made in the relationship advice subreddit by a throwaway account. The post is titled, "My husband has informed me that he intends to go on a gaycation with his brother-in-law in Ibiza. So my husband and I have been happily married for about 16 years, give or take. We both have stable careers, a good family life, and are fairly fortunate despite the rising cost of living in the UK right now. We have 2 boys and up until this Sunday thought we had it pretty good. We argue sometimes, of course, but it has never gotten too bad and we have a decent life with some exploration, but I won't get into that. The long and short of it is that on Sunday, just after I dropped our boys off at their friends' houses, my husband asked me if we had the house to ourselves and, more importantly, if I had a minute to talk. I said yes, and he sat me down and pulled out this printed poster for some sort of orgy. He started explaining to me the concept of a gaycation. He described it as a trip where straight men go somewhere with sun, sand, and booze and become gay for the duration of the trip. But that's fine because it doesn't actually count. What happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation. I was completely silent and mortified, even more so when he mentioned that he was looking into booking a trip to Ibiza next year with his brother-in-law to experience it for himself. When he finally let me speak, I asked him to be clear. Was he gay? Because if so, that's okay, but we would need to figure out what happens going forward. I didn't let myself get angry or upset, I was just stunned. He swore up and down that he wasn't gay and that he was 100% attracted to women and still loves me and our boys. So I asked if he thought he might be bisexual, but he got very defensive, saying I needed to drop the accusations. He insisted that this is the beauty of the gaycation. It allows straight men to experience gayness without actually being gay. It's like going to an aquarium. Again, he was adamant that he doesn't find men's bodies or genitalia exciting at all, but he feels the need to experience this. I told him I'm really not comfortable with it because even if he were bi, this would be explicitly cheating on me. He got angry again and reiterated that he's not gay because that's the beauty of the gaycation, etc. I had enough at that point and left the room. I ignored him for the rest of the day, but we spoke at dinner where I asked him again why he wanted to do this so badly if he's not gay. He said he's interested in how gay men's lives differ from straight men's lives, and that unfortunately, once the gaycation begins, it's simply impossible for a man to resist. He must surrender himself mind, body, and soul to the gaycation or be destroyed. I really can't put into words how surreal it was because he spoke so matter-of-factly. He insisted this is something straight men do all the time and that he's actually doing it a bit late. I told him that if he has any love for me, then he can't go ahead with this. If he does, our marriage will be over. We didn't speak anymore after that. Since then, he's mentioned nothing more about it, but somehow, this is what scares me a lot. It genuinely seems to be tearing him up inside. He didn't go into work on Monday because he told them he felt too ill. He looks distraught every time I see him. I really don't think he's wholly gay. I can absolutely believe he's bi, but I'd rather we talked about that in a healthy way rather than having this incredibly weird denialism around going on a holiday to Ibiza. Has anyone known straight guys to do this and then come back and just go back to being straight? Surely that can't be a thing that happens. I'm so out of my depth here. I just don't know how to even initiate the conversation. For the record, I also haven't mentioned it to his sister yet. I don't know how I'd even break it to her. Thanks for any help. Just being able to get this out there has helped even just a little bit. Edit, wow, this blew up. This has been incredibly sobering and I think I've now confirmed what I already knew. The marriage is dead one way or another. In a way, I was in denial myself about that. I contacted my SIL and she initially screamed at me, calling me a liar and insinuating that I was trying to steal her husband. She called me back shortly after to apologize and admitted she was in deep shock. I have asked my parents to look after the boys and we're going to meet tomorrow to discuss this in more depth. I have also texted my husband to inform him that he will need to make alternative accommodation arrangements because he will not be sleeping here tonight, and a bag will be waiting for him. I'm not sure if the mods want to lock the post or not, but I think I've got my answers. Thank you for all the kind words, especially Champion Flight, who really gave me the dose of reality I needed. P.S. I see a lot of people asking about the aquarium, and at the risk of doxing myself, there is a pretty famous aquarium in the UK called The Deep. At the very end, you walk through a tunnel that goes underneath the main fish tank, so it's quite immersive, I suppose. My husband explained the aquarium analogy by saying it's a bit like that. You go there and observe the fish. You even get a bit up close, but you never actually enter the water or become a fish, so it doesn't really count. It was a very bizarre analogy, and I pointed out that it still makes no sense. He just got more huffy and insisted that I just don't get it, and frankly, I still don't. Update. So, when I last posted, I had contacted my husband to tell him he wouldn't be staying at home tonight and that a bag would be waiting for him. As you can imagine, we argued quite badly. I won't go into the specific details, but I am now 100% on board with the fact that, at a minimum, he's bisexual and might even be gay altogether. We've had arguments in the past, but I've genuinely never seen him have such a childish tantrum before, screaming about how I just don't understand the gaycation, and insinuating that I'm actually homophobic because I refuse to allow him to participate in this cultural exchange with the gay community. A lot of you suggested asking him if it would be acceptable if the roles were reversed, so I asked him if it would be acceptable for me to go and sleep with other guys during that week. Like clockwork, he became very angry and offended, saying it's completely different because a gaycation means nothing and what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation, etc. So it doesn't actually count, whereas I'd just be straight up cheating. Well, I turned it around on him. No, but you see, what happens in Manchester stays in Manchester. It doesn't mean anything, it doesn't count, it's like bird watching. And I think it got through to him. He went quiet and then started crying, admitting that the thought of me sleeping with another man is destroying his heart, but that relationships need sacrifices. So he agreed, while in tears, that when he goes on the gaycation, I'll get 1 week in Manchester to do whatever I want. He doesn't want me to, but that's fair in a twisted way, he supposed. I told him to get out of my house. Thankfully, he left without a fight. I know it's incredibly petty, but I also drained the joint bank account so he couldn't try to use it against me. About an hour later, I received a call from his mom, who just screamed at me about being a cheating how I was horrible and what about the kids, etc. When I finally regained my composure, I told her to ask her son about the gaycation. At first, she got angry, but I insisted she ask him about it. He'd explain. She called me a joke and hung up. Later in the evening, I received another phone call from her in floods of tears. She was very apologetic, and I told her she didn't need to be the one to apologize. She was so upset that she put my father-in-law on the phone. While he sounded calm, I could tell he was on the warpath. He was again very apologetic and said he overheard that phrase. He asked my husband about it. My husband initially said it was nothing before explaining how it's a modern thing men do, etc., giving them the same spiel about how what happens on the gaycation is irresistible and how a man must surrender to it. My father-in-law said they told my husband to leave or they'd call the police. They didn't care where he went as long as he wasn't staying there. My husband tried to call me while I was on the phone with them, but I ignored it. My father-in-law expressed his sympathy for me and assured me they were on my side. So that's one thing. I told them to be there for their daughter because it sounds like my brother-in-law is involved, and my father-in-law said he had to go because he was so incredibly angry. After our phone call, I received a text from my husband that was weirdly rambling. He said I'd abused the gaycation to destroy his marriage and destroy his life, and again insinuated that I were homophobic for doing such a thing. I told him we'll talk when he grows up and then blocked his number. I took a day off work today to have the locks changed this morning, so that's 500 pounds gone, but whatever, at least I know he won't be coming back. I'm going to look into how to proceed with a divorce and then we'll move from there. Oh, of course, there's also the brother-in-law. I haven't yet met with my Sil because she was in such a state and has taken this far worse than I have for reasons that will soon be clear. We're going to try to meet tomorrow, but we did talk over the phone and I eavesdropped on the conversation with her husband by putting my phone on mute. When her husband got home earlier, she asked him to explain what a gaycation is. She told me afterward that she was praying he would look confused or just say what or anything like that. But instead, he sat her down and explained that a gaycation is a new thing where straight men go to gay hotspots and participate in gay acts, but it doesn't count because there's no investment, and because what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation. He said it's like writing down angry thoughts and putting them in a drawer. You never have to see them again. The whole time, Asil was in tears as he calmly dismissed the same points my husband made about how it doesn't count. He even echoed the whole "it's impossible to resist, you must surrender or be destroyed" nonsense. I seriously think they must be speaking to a dominatrix or something, because surely neither of them is that into this to actually come up with it on their own. I really don't want to go into what was discussed for her sake, but it became very apparent to me that the brother-in-law is into sissy hypno porn, and at times conflated that with the concept of a gaycation. There was this utterly surreal moment where Syl was trying to wrap her head around all of this while also in floods of tears. He explained so genuinely and matter-of-factly that for most men, the gaycation is either a one-time or annual thing, but some men go on the gaycation for years, and others simply never return because they use hypnosis and mind control to be totally feminized into a state of permanent pseudo-gayness. She said in disbelief that if you're willingly taking it up the ass because you want to, that makes you gay. He responded, no, because that's the beauty of the gaycation. You can do all this gay stuff without interacting with the wider gay life experience. She asked him if the sissy stuff is what he wanted, and he said not on a long-term basis, insisting that this is something all straight men do, but that she wouldn't understand because she's a woman. Then there were more insinuations of homophobia. Well, that marriage is dead too, I suppose. The whole ordeal ended when she told him he had a choice to make. He said no, he didn't need to make a choice because the beauty of the gaycation allows him to keep his marriage. It doesn't count. She said that's not the choice. The choice is whether he's leaving the house that night or she is. The only good thing he did was leave. Afterward, Syl and I spoke about it, and I'm still utterly stunned. I understand she's gone to her parents for support. What exactly did we do to have our lives destroyed in such an abrupt, bizarre, embarrassing way? Per some advice, I'm going to look at devices and bank statements to see if I can find any definitive proof of cheating. After that, I suppose I'll figure out how to tell the boys why their father won't be coming home. Edit. I spoke to another sister-in-law and gave her a skimmed-down version of everything. She asked her husband about it, and thankfully he was deeply confused, but then mentioned that about 2 years ago at a birthday party, my husband and brother-in-law approached him about signing up for some online boot camp around BDSM cross-dressing. He assumed they were joking and told them to f*** off, never really thinking about it again. The fact that this has been going on for so long is making me want to throw up. OP's husband is wildly deluded. I actually had to do a bit of a double take when reading this. I wasn't sure if I was understanding the story correctly. I'm basically speechless after reading it. It seems like a pretty cut and dry situation, albeit a strange one. If OP's husband is gay, that's fine, he can go and be gay, but it's obviously unfair to subject his partner to that and try to gaslight her into thinking this is acceptable in a marriage. User Angel Irene said, the internalized homophobia here is suffocating. Real talk. I think the concept of a gaycation is actively homophobic. I hate it. If it were a vacation that openly gay men took to go wild every year with their gay besties, then sure. But it's not. It's an overly complicated way to cheat on your wife. User Rickenback said, the ironic thing is that these two men are the ones behaving like homophobes. Acting as if gay sex doesn't count as cheating implies that gay sex is somehow less valid. It's straight up homophobia. User Rai Moss said, I mean, as a gay guy, there are indeed plenty of straight men who don't feel guilty about cheating on their wives with other men because it doesn't count because they're not really gay. But man, I've never seen anyone so committed to that concept. This last post was made in the Off My Chest subreddit by a user named Valuable Bit. The post is titled, My sister-in-law pranked me by giving me alcohol, knowing I don't drink. The short answer for this is that I grew up with two highly abusive alcoholic parents. It took me a lot of self-work and therapy to even be able to be in the same room as people who are drinking. When I meet new people, I politely turn down drinks by saying something like, I don't drink. There have obviously been instances where people ask me why, but I never go into the traumatic details. I've never had anyone push it on me or anything. That's what makes what happened last weekend so bizarre. On the second Saturday of every month, my husband and his sister throw a cookout for all of their childhood friends. I've always thought it was really cool that they stayed close with so many people since I moved away from home and only stay in contact with one friend from school. I've been attending these hangouts ever since my husband and I started dating, and there have never been any issues. I get along well with his friends and his sister. Last Saturday, my husband took my 11-year-old little brother out of town for a dad and son day. So I went to the cookout alone this time. I've done this a couple of times before and it's always been fine. My sil handed out the usual mimosas and I asked for just orange juice like always. When I took a sip of the drink she handed me, I immediately spit it out because I could taste champagne. I turned to my sil and said, "Oh, you must have given me your drink by mistake." When I turned around, I noticed her and two of her friends laughing. I was so confused. I asked what was going on, and my sil said through her giggles, "We thought it would be funny to see how you react to alcohol since we've never seen you drink it before. You should have seen your face." I was honestly just so shocked that my only response was, "What the hell?" As they continued laughing, I told them I was leaving. I honestly don't even remember the drive home because I was trying to keep myself from having a panic attack. When I finally got home, I broke down crying. My husband and brother got home shortly after that, and I couldn't hide how I was feeling even if I wanted to. My husband immediately asked me what was wrong and I broke down again. I hate that my brother had to see me cry. I try to keep our house as happy and safe as possible. After putting on a movie for my brother, I explained what happened to my husband. He was so mad. I've never seen him like that before. He told me to relax with my brother while he sorted everything out. I could hear him yelling at his sister on the phone, and after almost an hour, he came and sat with us and told me we wouldn't be seeing her again. The next day, we told my mother and father-in-law. I've always been really close with them, so I wanted to confide in them, but I was scared because that's their daughter, and I didn't want to speak badly about her to them. To my surprise, they were absolutely mortified and very apologetic on behalf of their daughter. I'm so glad because my little brother adores them. It would have been devastating if our relationship with them suffered because of this. So yeah, this past week has been so weird. I feel oddly betrayed. I hate that my sil and her friends used me as some sort of entertainment for the day. While they may not know the trauma this triggered inside me, I'm confused about why they thought that was an okay thing to do. I also feel guilty because I don't want my husband to stop going to the cookouts and lose his time with his friends, nor do I want him and his sister to never see each other again because of me. My husband is amazing and has assured me it wouldn't be my fault if they never speak again. It's just hard not to feel that way. Don't worry though, I've had a lot of emergency therapy sessions this week and I know I'll be okay. It was just such a bizarre thing to experience. It seems like such a small, inconsequential thing to have happened to me, but it's been a crash course on trauma, triggers, PTSD, etc. Typing it out has been so helpful. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. Update. A lot of you guessed right. This isn't the first time my sil has done something like this. She is definitely what some would consider a mean girl. My husband and his parents have had multiple falling outs with her over the years, but they've been on good terms recently until she pranked me. So yeah, I can see how my husband's immediate reaction to go no contact might seem like an overreaction, but he's dealt with a lot from her in the past. I don't want to give any specific examples because they're personal to my husband and his family. Hope you all understand. So here's what happened after my last post. After talking with my therapist and my husband, I decided I wanted to message my CL. I asked her if she wanted to get lunch and talk about what happened. I wanted to explain some of my past to her, including my PTSD diagnosis and why what she did affected me so much. I just wanted this to be over and for us to come to an understanding, but she never responded. A couple of my husband's friends who were at the cookout when the prank happened called us to check in on me. They said they had no idea my sil planned that and that they never would have let it happen. That's probably why she didn't clue them in on the prank. They told me that after I left, they told her it wasn't cool. After a couple of days, I just gave up hope of her messaging me back and decided to start moving on. Yesterday, my sil blew up my husband's phone. She said some pretty awful things. To summarize, it was along the lines of, "It's not my fault your wife is a PSSE who is scared of champagne." She said she never liked me and wished my husband had stayed with his high school girlfriend. The worst thing she said was that my husband was just doing charity by taking in a couple of orphans. If you don't remember, I have custody of my 11-year-old brother, and we don't have any contact with our parents because they're abusive. So yeah, some pretty awful stuff. I was honestly just shocked. I thought we got along fine. We were never best friends or anything, but I had no idea she held this much animosity toward me. Maybe she's just embarrassed and lashing out because some of her friends berated her for it? I don't know. My husband sent just one message back to her saying he never wants to see or talk to her again, then blocked her and her husband's numbers. He told his parents what happened and they were furious too. I don't know what they said to her, but they're about as done with her as my husband is. Since I've been in therapy and have support around me, her words didn't bother me much. I know she obviously has some problems to deal with and I'm just her latest target. The worst thing she did was bring my brother up. I'll never forgive her for that. He's not an orphan, he has two parents who love him, and I'm not either. I have in-laws who love and support me. They always have my back, even when it comes to their own daughter. If I never see my Sil again, I'd be fine with that. I truly hope one day she'll come to her senses and understand that the way she treats people isn't right. We've decided to turn every second Saturday of the month into family day instead of the cookouts. I'm going to be just fine. I'm already feeling miles better than I did when writing my previous post. For everyone calling me dramatic, I'm genuinely glad you don't have experience with PTSD or triggers. I don't think it's funny to give someone alcohol without their consent, even if you know the person drinks. Anyway, again, thank you for all the kind words. I hope there will be no more updates, but if anything crazy happens, I'll let you know. User Matcha Magpie said, "Don't mess with what people put into their bodies. Period. I'm glad that OP's husband and in-laws have her back. Unfortunately, that's not always the case in these stories." The sequel said, "People are so weird about alcohol for no reason. When people ask if I don't drink, there genuinely isn't a single answer I could give that isn't weirdly personal or mood ruining. So I just go ahead and say every possible reason. I'm pregnant, a former alcoholic with several DUIs, my parents were abusive drinkers, and I'm riddled with the entire DSM-5. I have no idea how I'll act these days while under the influence. And it tastes terrible. Like, are you happy now? Why do people randomly want you to lore drop at a bar? Stop asking questions like a nosy toddler. Grow up and let me enjoy my soda."